All right, let's talk about condo assignments. So for those of you who don't know, a condo assignment is when you buy a pre-construction unit today and you sell it prior to closing. So in 3 or 4 years time, you sell it for say $100,000 in profit to a new buyer who's actually going to close on that pre-construction unit. There are a lot of people who come to my office, they meet with me and they tell me that that's their investment plan from the get-go, that they want to buy a unit today and sell it in 3 or 4 years for $100,000 in profit, never close on the unit, never take out a mortgage, never tenant the property. Generally speaking, I advise against this. While on paper it's possible to profit, it's highly improbable to walk away with very much money after your costs. And I'm going to break down the costs in this video here for you. All right, so for our scenario, we're gonna say you bought a condo for $500. Right, this is your original price. You're gonna ask $600. Let's say it's worth $600 today over a span of 3 years. Keep in mind, this is really good performance. We're to about 6.25% compounding annual growth rate, which is tough to accomplish because generally speaking, when you buy a pre-construction condo today for $500, it's probably only actually worth on the resale market about $450 or so, because there's a large gap right now between pre-construction pricing and resale. But that's not what we're going to get into in this discussion. We're just going to talk about if you were to sell for $100,000 profit, how much do you actually walk away with? And this is actually going to vary depending on if you get hit with the CRA best case scenario versus the worst case scenario, and I'm going to go through both. All right, so for our scenario here, we've got to make a couple of assumptions. The first being assignment fee. So when you buy a pre-construction unit, oftentimes the builder will charge you a fee in order to resell the unit to someone else prior to closing. That can be $5,000, $10,000, or even 1% of original purchase price. A somewhat common incentive that we've seen over the past few years is free assignment. So we're going to assume that you got that incentive, you got free assignment, so you're not going to pay an assignment fee. However, oftentimes there's about $1,000 in builder legal fees in order to transfer ownership of the unit, and generally speaking, you're on the hook for that. So we're going to assume you pay about $1,000 in legal fees to transfer ownership of this unit. Next assumption is that you are going to use a realtor to sell your assignment. This is a pretty safe assumption because selling assignments without a realtor is borderline impossible unless you're willing to take considerably less than what it's worth. The reason for this is assignments cannot usually be listed on MLS. So the only way you can find a buyer is often by networking with other realtors or by having a database of tens of thousands of investor emails who might want to buy that particular unit. Generally speaking, this is why I tell people selling an assignment is considerably harder than selling an existing resale unit. So really be careful what realtor you pick to list your assignment. You want to pick a pre-construction broker with hundreds of thousands of emails because he's most likely to get top dollar for your assignment. So working on the assumption that you're going to use a realtor, we're going to assume standard commission, although sometimes I have seen higher with assignments because it can be difficult to move this type of product. Standard commission in Toronto is 5%, 2.5% for the buyer broker, 2.5% for the listing broker, which works out to $30,000 in commission on this particular unit. So before we go any further, I just realized I missed the part about how much deposit you're into this deal for. So with a standard pre-construction, you're going to be, 20% down on the unit. So given the original purchase price, you'll be into this deal for $100,000. Generally speaking, that's staggered out over a year or two with 5% installments, so installments of $25,000. But just keep in mind, you are in this deal in our assumption here for $100,000 so far. All right, so based on our assumption of $100,000 in profit and our costs here, you are currently sitting at $69,000. We'll call this net profit, and this would be gross profit, okay? So you're $69,000 net. Now the CRA comes into play. All right, so now my least favorite part of life. We got to talk about the CRA. So this is where things get interesting in our deal here. At this point, the CRA gets involved. Now, the CRA is going to tax you differently depending on your use case, or rather what they presume your use case to be. And of course, the CRA has unilateral power to make that decision, and it can really depend on whose desk you land at the CRA. So how it works is, if you are presumed to have bought this unit for yourself, if you can make a good case, if it's a reasonable assumption that you bought this unit and you intended to move into it, then you're going to pay capital gains on the profit. But if there's a reasonable case that you're just an investor who is always going to flip this property, you pay income tax plus HST. All right, so in terms of capital gains, if you're not familiar, the way capital gains works is they take 50% of the net profit, and that's the number that's taxable. So 69,000 divided by 2, you'll be at 34,500 taxable. Okay, and then what you do is you pay your income tax on that number there, the 50% of your profit number. So we're going to assume, just for our case scenario, you can go look up capital gains based on your income. We're going to assume you're making the big boy bucks. All right, you're making 220K a year or more, so you're in the top tax bracket. So you pay about 50% income tax. So we're just going to cut this number in half. So you're going to pay 17,250 in tax. Okay, on this profit here. All right, so in our best case scenario here, you bought for 500, 3 years later you sold for 600. Difficult to achieve in today's pre-construction climate, but let's say you did it. You're in the deal for $100,000, okay? After you sold it for 100K more than it's worth, you pay legal fees, your realtor commission, you net 69,000, you pay Papa Trudeau here, and you're left with 51,750. So you're walking home with 151,750, meaning your down payment back plus that profit margin, which works out to about 50% year over year. So you beat the S&P 500. It's not a grand slam investment, but it's not bad either. It's certainly better than leaving your money in the bank. All right, so your front half of costs is still going to remain the same here. You're still going to pay your legal fees, and you're still going to pay your real estate fees. So you're left with 69,000. All that changes in the worst case scenario is how you pay tax on the deal. So first up, you're going to pay HST. As an investor, as a property flipper who does this for a living, or so the CRA thinks, you're going to take your gross profit, you're going to pay HST on that, and you're going to take your down payment. Okay, you're going to pay HST on both of those, 13% in both cases. So you're going to pay $26,000 in HST. So now you're left with 43,000 of the 69,000 in gross profit you had, and you still got to pay more tax. So on that number, you're going to pay income tax because you're a property speculator. So again, assuming you make the big bucks, we'll just say you're in the top tax bracket because it makes my life easy. So you pay 21,500 in tax, and you're left with 21,500 in net profit. So you put 100 grand into the deal, okay? You walked away with 121.5 after 3 years' time, which works out to about 6.75% annual growth rate, in this case, your money was better in the stock market. Now, keep in mind, I've seen plenty of assignments where people walked away with more profit than that. I would say, based on the assignment market in the last 6 months, it's more common to walk away with less profit margin than that. And of course, I've also seen people walk away at a loss, meaning, they don't sell it at a price enough to cover their costs, and they're definitely walking away with less money than they put into the deal. But those are certainly quite rare. Now, don't get me wrong. If you want to buy a condo unit to assign, you want to flip the unit, come to me. I'll help you analyze the best deals out there. I'll help you find the one with the maximum ROI. I will help you buy it. I will help you sell it. Just be aware, the only people likely to get rich off of your assignment investment is me, your friendly neighborhood broker, and of course, even more so, the government. Now, a lot of realtors won't tell you this stuff. I've been to a lot of presentation centers. I've overheard a lot of other people, give their clients a sales pitch on a condo project. And oftentimes I find assignment sales are, assignment clauses are touted as this like get rich quick, or at bare minimum, a very easy way to liquidate your condo investment for, tons of profit, because there are plenty of realtors who live in this world where property prices only go up and do so in a rapid manner. If you have a friend or a family member who profited hundreds of thousands of dollars on assignment, just be wary. Be aware that that probably happened because they bought prior to 2016 and then sold after 2017, which, if you're not familiar, in that 12-month period, Toronto condos went up 30% in price, which was the best performing year ever in the Toronto condo market, and it's likely never going to repeat. So it's not exactly an event that you want. This right here is the quarterly increase in per square foot pricing for Toronto condos from 2011 through 2020. And as you can see here, 2016 through 2017 saw as much as 30% appreciation in condo prices. This is what I'm talking about. If someone bought a pre-construction somewhere here, sold it somewhere here, they did incredibly well. But as you can see, the long-term average is a very bullish, by the way, 8% per year is phenomenal for a property market, but it isn't enough to justify buying a condo, selling it 3 years later. All right, so thanks to the lockdown, I have some time on my hands. I want to do a video every day for the next 3 weeks or so. So if you have any questions for me, they can be about condos, it can be about real estate investing, it can be about detached homes, it can be about different markets around Canada or outside of Canada. It can be about economics or even being a realtor, whatever. If you have any questions you want answered that you think might be interesting, or even if they're not interesting, do me a favor, shoot me the question. Would love to cover it in the next few days here. Final point here is don't take all this to say assignments are, never do assignments. Obviously, assignments give liquidity in an area where you wouldn't normally have it. So the asset doesn't exist, it's sort of intangible. So I think my overall point is don't buy a pre-construction condo with the investment thesis solely that I'm going to assign it. Buy a unit if you intend to close and you intend to hold that unit, but be aware that assignments can be a marginally profitable way out of that investment should life change or should your finances change and you don't want to close on that unit forever for whatever reason. But always be prepared to close on that unit if you have to.